That is a-okay. Um, So first, what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask about, yeah. Is there any confusion, questions, weirdnesses going on for you guys with like lists and dictionaries and debugging? Because I know dictionaries are weird. It can even be like, why the hell do I need to use a dictionary? I don't know. Yeah. Why the hell do we need to use a dictionary? Yeah, I mean, that is a question that I had when I took this course. So for folks watching this recording, the question was, why do we need to know how to use dictionaries? Dictionaries are weird, but also kind of dope because what is a dictionary? This is actually a great time for some review. What is a dictionary? Promise you I'm better at awkward silences than you, so someone will crack first. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's a use for dictionaries, yes. Do you have kind of an idea of how they're structured?
There's usually like a top of like a category and then sort of in it into a list.
Great. So we have in dictionaries, so the answer was you have this category and then you have sorted within it these lists, and that holds your data. Within dictionaries, in like dictionary terminology, we call that keys and values. So dictionaries can be incredibly long or they can be incredibly short. But in any case, they're super useful. There's an entire file type based on dictionaries called JSON files. Yeah, JSONs. And they can be used to tell a telescope where to point. So in astronomy, we're taking an astro course, so that's the most applicable use. But because you have these keys, this dictionary can hold n number of keys, you can store n amount of data sorted by whatever the specific key is. So imagine that you are trying to hold all of the information about all of the different planets in your head. So you're like, okay, I guess I'll make a dictionary because then I can say, okay, Mercury, Mercury would be my key. That is, I mean, you could choose it to be planet 1 and then give it a value called Mercury. But within the list that is attached to that key, you can give it a mass, you can give it an albedo, which is how much light is reflected off of the atmosphere. You can give it an effective temperature, because planets kind of weirdly do have an effective temperature, which is just the temperature at their surface. You can give it, what else can you can give it any sort of identifying information that you want. And if you do it in an organized way, then you can automate a lot of applications. So if I say, okay, let's loop through the keys of a dictionary, and for each key in keys, I want to know the mass of each planet represented by which key. So I loop through 4 key in keys, and I get to go through Mercury, and then I call the mass of Mercury. And then the next one through, I get Venus, then I can get the mass of Venus, based on where I put the mass of each planet in that list. And so they can be incredibly useful like that. There's a few data storage and data analysis techniques that we'll use that lean heavily on dictionaries, including pandas. Pandas is a very cute name for a very, very useful Python package, which we talk a little bit more about in, I think, next week. We talk about what packages are. But yeah, so dictionaries can assign data to a specific key value. And throughout the rest of the class, we will be talking, that is kind of one of, that is kind of one of the major themes, is how to use different data types to your advantage, and how to develop kind of this mathematical approach to getting the things you want done. Cool? This is something that we've talked about a little bit, that you guys have done a little bit, starting in homework 3, moving on to homework 4. Speaking of, just a reminder, homework 4 is due or was due? Homework 4 is due Thursday night, right? Yeah, homework 4 due Thursday night. But again, 2-week grace period. I know everyone's coming up on midterm season. And so use that if and when you need it. Cool? Do we have any other review questions before we get into the actual problems we're going to go through? I'm assuming questions will come up as we go. Cool. So without further ado, please take a look at problem 1 on your debugging discussion. So most of this homework is taken from or inspired by the CS61A debugging practice worksheet from spring 2022. Several of our instructors have taken CS61A, and we developed new curriculum very recently. And so they took a lot of inspiration from various different, inspiration from various different classes that they'd taken. Cool? So problem 1, you're writing your own implementation of the map function, which takes in a 1-argument function and applies it to every element in a list and returns a new list. However, you are running into some bugs. This is what you expect to happen. Define this function called double. It takes in an argument x and it returns x times 2. You take a list and you give it 3 values, 1, 2, and 3, and you say, okay, double my list. Cool. And it should give you 2, 4, 6. So this is the code that you've written. So basically it's saying this is not the full set of code. Actually, no, it is. This is the test case. Cool. And then this is the code that you've written so far. So def my map. It takes in got 2 variables, function and sequence. It does all of these things here. And then this is the error that you get. So the first part that we'd like you to answer is, what line is your error on? So go ahead and fill out this. Feel free to discuss. I believe the answer is in the example error. So I'm only going to give you a minute or so to answer this, and then just, I don't know, stare into the depths of my soul when you're done. Cool? Yeah. It's in B courses. Here, let me, actually, before I start that minute, let me show you guys where that file is, just in case you haven't gotten it quite yet. Stop share. Share, I'm just going to share my desktop. 1. And we'll go here. So if you go to B courses, go to discussions. Under discussions, you will find list, dictionaries, debugging, and discussion. Cool. So I'm going to start the minute now. Great. So what line is your error on? Yeah. It's on line 4. Where'd you get that from?
Well, one is that it says it's.
Yep. Right here. Sorry, sometimes I do have to like show people. So it sounds mind-numbingly obvious, but it can be hard to read errors at first. Even though we've gone through this lecture. So yeah. This is where our this is where our error is. Yeah. Reading the words in your error is really useful. Sometimes there's going to be some weird stuff above the error. Mostly, you can just ignore that until you get to something that says trace back most recent call last. And then start reading the error. If the error is super complicated, then you may have to look further up. But for now, this is the most important part of your error. Now, so we have part 1 going. Now for part 2, rewrite the line of code to correct the error. Please keep the code in quotes. So how would you go about fixing this code? I'm going to give you a few more minutes. Please feel free to chat amongst yourselves. Debugging is always easier with a friend. Did you choose this? Was it assigned to you? That's not what I want either. That's so incredibly silly. word that is in all of the libraries. Because often, I think that's how I think it is. So before we take that up into the field, we have to clean it. So it took kind of too long. It took me maybe too long. And not to the most. So there's three words. The words are about this big. But I wasn't actually cleaning the board. I was cleaning the optical fibers that came on the inside. Oh, yeah, I mean, it's just. My senior kids have their midterm. When they got their first grade grade back. Last. You know how it's funny first, college, fifth grade. And now they're big next, which is really, really, really. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I am with mine. You're looking for places to do the valley convolution. It's like, you know what? Sometimes I love being like really art. Exactly, and it's art. Alrighty, everyone. Thumbs up, middle down on where we're at with this problem. Do you guys want a few more minutes? Okay, then let's go through it together. This is going to be real time how I solve. This is how I solve debugging issues. Because in the spirit of being in the same place as you guys, I didn't look at this. I did help to write it, so I remember some of it, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So, what is actually our error? Maybe this is something we should have talked about after part 1, but what is our error?
You're indexing using the value of I.
Mhm.
The value of I is not the index position. It's like the actual value of that position.
Yeah.
But like if the number was like 100, and you're like asking what's the index of 100?
And
What's the index?
and do we have index 100? Great. So where would that break down in our list? If we go from, so if our test list is 1, 2, and 3, where do we stop being able to index I in sec? So for I in sec, if I ran for I in sec, what would I print out? If I ran for I in sec print I, what would I print out? What? Zero, 1, 2, those are the indices. So for I, actually, this is a great, I actually really dislike VS Code, so I'm going to show you in Python on my terminal. So right now we have our list is 1, 2, 3, but inside of map, if I say def my map function comma sequence, res equals brackets, for I in sequence, current equals function of sequence I. So if we say, so I'm gonna say sequence is equal to 1, 2, 3. If I say for I in sequence, and I say print I, how many people, raise your hand if you agree with that it'll print out 0, 1, 2? Any other ideas? Yeah? Anyone agree with that? Okay. Seeing marginally more hands. Yeah, so we'll print out 1, 2, 3. Because we are not indexing through the, or we are not iterating through the index, we are iterating through the elements. This is an important distinction to make, because I still run into this issue. I've gotten better at like noticing it and feeling less embarrassed about doing it. But you never stop mixing up your indices and your elements. You just learn how to recognize the error and you learn how to deal with the shame of mixing that up. So how do I change this to print out our actual indices that we care about? Yeah. So if I say for I in seek, like that? I mean, so that is a great guess because the way we index values is by saying list bracket I. Actually, I don't know what will happen here, so let's kind of see what's going on. Okay. Video panel. Ugh. Hide floating meeting controls. It cannot unpack a non-iterable int object. So I wonder if I do for I in seek print I. Okay. So it doesn't like, it doesn't like something in there, and I'm pretty sure that it doesn't like the brackets. So what numbers are we actually trying to grab? We want 0, 1, 2. That's something that we said, right? We don't have direct access to 0, 1, and 2 because, like we said, our list is 1, 2, and 3. And that list could be anything. It could be 25, 306, 4 million, right? And we don't have a 4 millionth index, so we really need to make sure we're looking at these indices. So when we first learned about for loops, there was a very specific function that is native to Python that we said we cared a lot about. Does anyone remember what it is with for loops? For looping through indices. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he asked, can we do the length? So for I in length of sequence, kind of like that? Or is there something missing? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so do you remember how to make a list of numbers that goes from 0 to the length? It's all good. Yeah. Range. Do we remember range? General nodding or shaking of heads will suffice. Okay, that is totally chill. Range basically is a function that says, you can kind of think of it in the English sense, which is that what is a range in English? It is a range of numbers from a place to a place. So if I say for range in 0, oh God, 0, length of sequence, print I, then I will get 0, 1, 2. Because range prints out, actually a more intuitive example of this. List range 0, I don't know, 3. 0, 1, 2. Yeah. So as we see here, it assumes that your first inclusive value is a 0, and your second value, and well, the only value that we actually specified was range. Actually, no, we did specify it. So this first value is the starting point, and it is inclusive, which means that the list will start at that number. And then the second value is exclusive, which means it will end right before that number. And so range is a really, really, really useful function that Python knows about to iterate through lists, because 3 is the length of our sequence SEQ, comma is 1, 2, 3, so length is 3. If I say range of 0, length SEQ, then I will get range of 0, 3, which will give us a list of 3 elements, which is 0, 1, and 2. Confusion about that? What are our questions? Okay. So let's go back here. And remind ourselves of where we started. So for I in sequence, that was our problem line. We said that, or sorry, line 4 was our problem line. Current equals function of sequence I. And we said that that was a problem because I is the element within sequence and not the index. So we can't index with the element. We have to index with the index. Sorry, that was a confusing thing to say and probably a little frustrating to hear. I did hear that as it came out of my mouth, and I'm sorry about that. But essentially what we would need to, so this is, it's on line 4. This line should be, so after what we've talked about, what do I need to change this line to? Yeah? For I, that, yes, that's the correct way of doing it. The lazy way of doing it is that you can leave the 0 off, because then range assumes that you're starting from 0. Cool? So the way that I'm going to input this here is that we say, so the line should be for I in range, I'm going to say range 0, length of sequence. Cool. Going back a little bit to part 1, is our error actually on line 4? It said our error was on line 4, but what's actually on line 4 is a function call, or the actually problematic part of this was that we were trying to index the element on line 4. But the line that we needed to change was either the initialized for loop, Or there's another way to do this, which is instead of saying for I in range length sequence, we could change this to just be I. Does it make sense why? Thumbs up, middle down. Okay. So if we're iterating through the elements in sequence, we saw here, so if sequence is equal to 1, 2, 3, for I in sequence, so we iterated through all of these elements, we printed out I, that print gave us 1, 2, and 3. If we change the values of sequence to be, I don't know, 10, 35, -12, and we say for I in sequence, print I, we're going to get 10, 35, -12. And so if we want to, if we want to call the function that we called in this second, or in this mymat function, then we need to change either our iterable or we need to change our line 4. Cool? So the error is not necessarily just on line 4, but it is where it is this disconnect in how you've written line 3 and 4. Because here you are iterating through the elements and you're trying to index with the element. Both of those are half of a correct solution, but don't work together. So either you can iterate through the index and then call the element of the list by indexing it and call the function with sequence I, or you can iterate through the elements like how we started and call this function func on I. I'm going to keep moving here. And I'm going to say, yeah, for I in range, sorry. Let's actually change. Copy this. And we will say function of I. Cool. So let's see that in action. So I'm going to define this double function. So def double of x, and then return x times 2. So now we have this function double. If I call double of 2, then I'll get 4. And now let's define my map. So def my map. We have function, comma, list. Or sorry, function, comma, sequence. Remember that you need to add an indentation. If you're working on VS Code, then it does it for you automatically, which is really nice. I'm just gonna kind of copy paste each line as we go, because most of this is correct. And then we have for I in sequence. And then we need 2 indents because we've started up a loop. And then I'm not going to copy what was written, but I'm going to copy the line that I wrote. And then I'm going to finish this out with res.append. And then return res. Okay. So if I call my map with our function name double, because double is a function. So if I call double, And then I call the list that I care about, which we're calling sequence. This is double of 10. This is double of 70. Or sorry, this is double of 35. This is double of -12. Yeah.
For the function part,
Mhm.
does that work for like functions only, where you put a function when you're actually, or does it work for everything?
You can make an argument be any type of thing. So it can be a function, it can be an integer, it can be a string, it can be a dictionary, it can be a list, it can be an array. We'll talk about arrays next week, or sorry, on Thursday. But yes, so you can make a function an argument. So if I say double, what is double? Python knows that it's a function because I've defined it as a function. And the way that Python knows I've defined it as a function is with this cool, funky little syntax. Cool? Let's keep moving because we are woefully running out of time. That is okay, because I feel like I've clarified some things. And if my words are confusing and not helping, please let me know. Actually, thumbs up, middle down, still deeply confused. Okay. Okay. That's not a bad place to be because debugging is really weird. We have 13 minutes left. Do you guys want me to post a video of walking through all of these solutions? Okay, because we will have solutions to all of these debugging issues. Like all of these problems will have solutions posted on B courses, but I know sometimes solutions aren't super helpful if there's no logic behind it. Cool. So yeah, let's keep going a little bit on to problem 2. And then I will post that video for you guys. Cool? So, in problem 2, some people on the internet have run into problems with their code. It's your job to help them figure it out. Once you guys get better at code, disclaimer, I am not good enough at code to answer people on the internet yet. Mostly because the problems I have with code are not, like the code that I run is, or the code that I know how to do is not code that people who are asking for help on the internet need help with. So here's their code. Person on the internet, here's the code they've given you. You have some percentages. You have a max score of 300. Here's some list comprehension nonsense. So this is just a for loop embedded into a list. And it has scores. So, and then after that, so this is not a function, this is just define your variables and then define a list with list comprehension, and then print out the output. So the expected output is this. So if you get 100%, you get 300 out of 300. If you get 90%, you get 270 out of 300, and so on and so forth. But instead, we're getting print scores corresponding to the given percentages on a scale out of 300. Get invalid syntax. So I'm gonna give you guys a few minutes to work on this by yourselves. Well, working together would be great. Do you want to see this written out in like normal for loop syntax? Would that help? Yeah, okay. So basically this is asking to return this has an extra bracket. The integer of percent times max score, 4% in percentages. Now list comprehension syntax puts the for loop at the end in this one line, and then has the body of the code at the front. So let me show that in my terminal. So if I have int of, actually I should define all of my variables first, because otherwise she will not know what I am talking about. So those are the percentages. Then I have a max score is equal to 300. And so this is giving me a problem. Wow, I think I gave you guys the answer on this one. Quite on accident. So how did I give you guys the answer? I kind of forgot we were doing a debugging discussion for a second there. And I deleted something. I did. I removed the bracket at the front because I noticed it. And that's a debugging thing that I've had to do a lot. And so I was like, oh, that's wrong. Let's keep going with this. So let's delete that bracket, not realizing that that was the error we were asking you to come up with. So God, that is deeply embarrassing. You're so welcome. I'm so happy to help. I'm gonna have us do problem 3 first. God, okay. I'm gonna have us do problem 3, and I will talk about, because I'd like you guys to get a little bit more practice of doing it on your own. With me not accidentally giving you the answers. So you wrote some code for class, but you have run into an unexpected output. You're trying to calculate the BMI based on data you have. Somehow the calculated BMI always seems to be the same no matter what data you input into it. Here's what you have. Patience equals blank. Define your function that returns weight over height squared. And then for patient in patients, weight and height is equal to patient's 0. And then BMI is equal to calculate BMI of height and weight. And then you'll print out patient's BMI is BMI. And it keeps printing out patient's BMI is 0.000, or sorry, 0.000367. These people have different data. So why am I getting the same number? Talk about it for a few minutes, and then we'll go over it together. Cool? Alrighty. Thumbs up, middle down, where are we with this problem? Have we discovered our error? Eyes closed, thumbs up, middle down. Okay. Cool. Can I get some ideas? Yeah. This one right here? Yeah, that is a great spot. So do do do. Oh, it wanted you to. I'm just gonna copy paste this down here. Why are you doing this to me? Oh my God. That's why. Okay. Yes. So if you like copy paste this code in VS Code, you are going to see that this is a big issue. Because these two apostrophes are telling VS Code, hey, this is actually one string, patient is your string, and then everything outside of it is things in Python. So what's one way that we can fix that is by changing the types of quotation marks so that we can have this single quotation mark. And then we have gotten rid of this issue. Will this still print out our patient's BMI is that? Is it still going to calculate the same value for every patient? Why? Yeah.
Patients, brackets,
Yes, it does. Can you explain what it has to do with patient's bracket 0?
I think it's just continuously using patient zeros data.
Yeah. So yes, it is iterating through every patient, but for every patient, it's only calling the first patient. We are out of time, so you guys should go home. But really quick, heads down / close your eyes. Who would like me to hold a review session for like conditionals, loops, things like that? Cool. I will send out a when to meet / Google form type thing, and come up with some questions for you guys. I will also make a video of solving all of these debugging problems. I'm going to do it, I'll release it probably within the next 2 days, because I would like you guys to try the rest of these problems if you can, or try them if you have the capacity to. It's okay if they go badly. There's always us. Cool? Now go home. Thanks, everyone.